So here's our maths memory card of this topic of simple factorizing. So we're going to learn a few different techniques under the heading of factorizing over here. Quite a few will be quite intuitive. First of all, let's write these clear sections down as templates on your revision card so you have a good idea of this. Let's go through each of these key objectives in turn. So the first one is basic factorizing. You're going to be an expert in this at the end of this video. Number two, difference of two squares. That sounds really long. We call it dots for short, an abbreviated version, and basic quadratics, the quad box. You're going to be a star on this at the end. So this topic is called simple factorizing. It's a bronze topic. It's on both on foundation and higher tier levels. It's a week 8 topic in your revision planner. We're hitting grade 5 over here. All of these three, it's worth mentioning, saying are all quite linked together in one question. Okay, so they all are linked in some sort of way. Here's a space for your best example during this video, and here are 3 steps we hope to get at the end of this. So turn over to your toolkit and let's get ready to create our sections within this. Question 1, parts A, B, C, and D. Write these questions down and press play when you're ready. So in these questions, we're dealing with a type of factorizing called basic factorizing. And it's pretty simple, basically. It's quite common sense. Let's do this right now. So factorize 4x minus 6. So the first thing you want to do is look at the numbers 4 and 6 and find the highest common factor, what goes into 4 and 6. That's quite self-explanatory. It's 2. Okay. Second step, we're going to put a little bracket over here, okay, put a little times as well. And third step, 2 times what gives you 4x? It'll be 2x. And 2 multiplied by what gives you minus 6 minus 3. That's your answer for that. It's quite easy. The key thing is that the 2 outside represents your highest common factor. We can highlight this times if you want to. You don't have to include that in our future questions and answers, but that's just for the first part. Same thing. How do you factorize 10x squared plus 15x? What goes into 10 and 15? So this will be obviously 5, the highest common factor. What goes into x squared and x? It's x. Step 1. Step 2, we make a bracket. Step 3, let's work backwards. 5x times what gives you 10x squared? This will simply be 2x. 5x times what gives you 15x? This will be plus 3. And there we go. 3 simple steps to make sure you understand this. Third type of basic factorizing over here. So we're dealing with 8x minus 12x squared y. Same concept. Let's look at the numbers first. 8 and 12. What goes into those? 4. X and x squared. X. And any y's? We can't put y outside because y is only common to this bit over here. 4x is our highest common factor. Open brackets. Second step. Third step, 4x times what gives us 8x? It's simply 2. 4x times what gives us 12x squared y? It'll be 3xy. So look back at basic factorizing. That's all we need to know for that. The thing is, the highest common factor is a key element you need to learn on this. So here's section A on your toolkit, and the first type of factorizing out of these 3 different types is basic factorizing, just simply meaning the most common sense way of doing factorizing. Take out your HCF, your highest common factor, outside your bracket, and basically just factorize it within one bracket within that. Pause the slide, please. Write this question down. Part D, question 1, back to basics. Press pause, write these questions down, press play when you are ready. So these questions, we're dealing with something called a dots, a difference of 2 squares. That's what they stand for. And how do we know it's difference of 2 squares? Well, the first thing you need to identify when you see an expression like this is a square number at the end, okay, and a minus as well. Never a plus, a minus, a square number. It'll always be x squared minus a square number. Now the way you do this is fairly simple. Look at the 9, and we go straight to 2 brackets over here. We square root that last number because it was a square number. It's plus 3 minus 3. we simply just put an x here, an x here, and we're done. Simple as that. Next one over here, x squared minus y squared. So in this case, we'll look again at y squared. Is that a square number? Well, it is a square number, but it's a y term. So if we square root that, we're going to get y. So same concept, two brackets like this, plus y, minus y, x and x. The key thing is to identify a difference of two squares. Difference of two squares is what we need to understand. Difference of two squares. This actually is x squared minus y squared equals x plus y, x minus y. Okay, so just make sure you understand that. That is actually dots. D-O-T-S. And this is what it is over here. I'll put it in brackets. It'll make more sense to you. D-O-T-S. Here's your section B on your revision card. So make a note of dots, a difference of two squares. That's the long version of this, but we say dots. Question 1, cool one. So press pause, write parts A and B down, and press play when you are ready. In this question, we're dealing with exact exam style questions on the core. They're slightly more complicated than back to basics. So let's look at this. Now, when we see this, we're looking at different terms, let's say numbers, x's, and y's. So let's first of all look at all the numbers over here. And all the numbers, let's call red. Okay, we'll put a red box underneath these. All the x's, we'll put a green, like we've done with all our videos. And the y's, we'll just put a black color over here. So these are three different terms, should we say, that are all different with respect to each other. So let's see what goes into 12 and 15. Let's deal with the numbers first. So the HCF of this is simply 3. Next, x squared and x, the green boxes. What goes into x squared and x? It's going to be x. And what goes into, well, there's imaginary 1 over here, 1 and y. Well, we can't do that because we haven't got enough information there. So let's create our brackets once we have our HCF outside over here. Remember, this is our HCF, what we've created on the outside. Let's just write that HCF if you do get confused. So step 1, HCF. Step 2, our bracket. Step 3, what goes inside this? Let's work backwards for this. So 3x times what gives you 12x squared. So it's 4x. 3x times what gives you 15xy. So this would be plus 5y. We don't put the x because that's irrelevant. So make sure you understand how we created that using the simple idea of the boxes. Let's underline this. So now we do part B. So part B, factorize 18x squared y cubed minus 12xy squared. That sounds really complicated, but let's break it down again with what we taught you just now. So all the numbers, let's put a red box here. The x's, we'll put a green box, and then all the y's, we'll put another colored box. Let's call it black in this case. Here we go. Let's do the same thing. 3 steps. HCF is number 1. So first, 18 and 12. What goes into those two numbers? 6. What goes into x squared and x? X. What goes into y cubed and y squared? This will be now y squared. Okay, just take note of that. That's quite tricky. In fact, most students put y, but actually the HCF of both these terms, it's actually going to be y squared. Second step, we'll put a big bracket around here. Third step, let's work backwards. Let's put a times here to help us understand this. Now, 6x y squared times what gives us this over here? It'll be 3xy. Just work backwards and make sure we're correct with that. Minus, because of the minus over here. This one would be 2. Now the x will not be there because the x is already outside, and this would simply be, well, there wouldn't be any y over here, would there, because the y squared is over here. So this would be your final answer. In fact, let's just do this. It makes it a bit better, and that would be your final answer for how you'd create this. So make sure again you look through this video and look through this part B section, because these come up quite a lot in exam questions. There we go. Question 2, core 2. So press pause, write these questions down, press play when you are ready. So question 2 part A, we're dealing with something called dots over here, and we call it advanced dots. And how do we know it's dots? It's simply because got the x squared and the y squared within this. So you have to know how to identify the original basic dots, let's call it x squared minus y squared. So the trick is what we use is we identify its dots. We know it's advanced dots because of the coefficients or the numbers before it, these two. But let's go into this and let's try to factorize dots on a basic level, i.e. just x squared plus y squared. This is the way we would attempt it over here. So x squared minus y squared would be x plus y, x minus y. And then we'll look at the 9 and the 16. And we'll simply square root the 9. And that will be 3. We'll put the 3 in front of the x and the x here to make it a coefficient of 3 on each. And then we'll look at the 16. The square root of 16 is 4. We'll put a 4 in front of this and a 4 in front of this as well. And guess what? If you were to expand this to 4 steps, you would actually get the same thing over here. Okay, we won't do it, but that's called advanced dots. Make sure you can identify that quite well. Part B, factorize 36 minus 144 y squared. So in this case, again, we'll use the same idea of identifying this as dots. We'll call it advanced dots because of the numbers over here. And let's try to deal with it in this case over here. So 2 brackets. So we could say this. We could say 36. What's the square root of 36? Let's just put 6 and 6 over here. And let's look at this over here. 144y squared. But straight away, you should be able to see that this actually would be 12y and minus 12y. Again, you can always test it by expanding the 4 steps. It'll always work. That's how you do these 2 parts over here. Advanced dots, let's call it. Here's your section B on your revision card. So make a note of dots, a difference of 2 squares. That's the long version of this, but we say dots, and it's quite self-explanatory, quite easy if you ask me. Both basic and advanced levels of this. So pause the slide and write this down. Question 3, core 3. So press pause, write these questions down, and press play when you are ready. So in this case, we're dealing with a different type of problem when we deal with factorizing. We're dealing with something called basic quadratics. We've dealt with basic factorizing. We've dealt with dots. And the third type is called basic factorizing. So how do we know to identify basic factorizing? Well, pretty simple already. We look at this and we could see an x squared, an x, and a number within this. Okay, 3 different types of terms. So that's how you identify this x squared, x, number in that order. Now, we've put a 1 there, a coefficient of 1, just to make things easier for us. So when we know it's going to be a quadratic, we think of something called a quad box. And this is a really effective tool to simplify the whole process. We'll create a little box over here. And what we'll do, we'll write quad box as such. You don't have to write quad box. I'll just write it to show you the first time. So we want 2 numbers that multiply to get the last number being minus 6 over here. Okay. And we simply want 2 numbers, the same numbers should we say, in these dashes, that add up now to get this coefficient of x, which is 1. Okay, so it's always going to be the last one first, 2 numbers that multiply, and then secondly 2 numbers that add up to get this one over here. So what are these 2 numbers? Now you can experiment. They have to be the same, obviously, in the same column. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake, but try to get it right the first time. Now always look at the times row first. Okay, now what numbers multiply to get minus 6? Well, let's do it right the first time. So it'll be 3 and minus 2, because 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. And let's put these same numbers over here. They have to be the same. 3 plus minus 2, same as saying 3 minus 2, which is 1. These are our numbers. So let's just write a set of brackets over here. We'll put x here, and we'll put x here as well. This will be 3, so plus 3, because there's an imaginary plus there. And we can put minus 2 here. It doesn't make a difference which way we put the numbers in terms of it could be x minus 2 and x plus 3. It doesn't matter which way around they are. That's how you do the first one over here. Let's look at now at part B, and let's do more of this exam style question, which says to factorize this. So here we're mixing 2 different techniques we've talked about in this video so far. So the top one is going to be obviously the quad box, because we have x squared, x number. The bottom one is dots. So let's just do the quad box straight away over here, and let's see what we get. The quad box is for the numerator. 2 numbers are multiplied to get the last number, which happens to be 6 and two numbers that add up to get the middle number, -5. They love giving these kind of questions in exams because they try to confuse you. Because 6, what multiplies to get 6? I bet you're thinking of 6 and 1 or something along those lines, but actually it is two negative numbers they want, because two negatives can multiply to get a positive. We'll put these two negatives over here as well, and this will serve as our numerator. So we've got x over here and we've got x over here as well. We have -2 and we have -3. So that is going to be the first one over here. Then x squared minus 9. So x squared minus 9, this is actually dots. It's quite an easy version of this. So we put x here and x here, basic dots, -3 plus 3. Again, which order it is, it doesn't really make a difference. Now we can see that we can cross certain things off here because we have a x minus 3 and x minus 3. So these two can cancel, and that simply leaves us with our answer of x minus 2 over x plus 3. You can just write it like that. So if we have space, we could just about write that as our final answer. X minus 2 over x plus 3. This is the toolkit section C, the quad box, which is used quite often. So make sure, again, you understand the quad box. This is the basic quad box we're talking about in this video over here. So pause this slide and write this down. Question 4, challenge. So press pause, write part A and B down, and press play when you are ready. So in this case, we're looking at something a bit more complicated, and we're looking at particularly the notion of this. So let's try to make this clear in terms of the P plus Q is something that's new to us, but actually it should really seem that new and daunting. Let's think of it as the boxes, and let's think of all the X's to be over here as green. Okay, now when we think of the X's, they're normally green, but let's substitute wherever we see P plus Q, let's call it X in a second. Okay, this is a little trick for this. Okay, and we'll call the numbers red like we've previously done. Let's do this substitution over here. Wherever we see P plus Q, because it's come up twice, let's call it X. So let's write it like this. 2x squared minus 4x, okay? Because basically X is P plus Q. That's something I should have written first, in fact. Okay, so we sub this in. So this is actually what we need to factorize. Let's factorize this. 2x, x minus 2. Now, if you can factorize something involving x's, I'm sure you can obviously factorize this substitution, because all we do, you guessed it, we sub back. Wherever we see x, we plug in p plus q. So this would be 2p plus q over here. And what I'll do, I'll create a square bracket. It doesn't really make a difference, just to help you differentiate this. P plus q again, because that's x minus 2. What we've done is wherever we've seen x, we've simply subbed in p plus q, because that's p plus q over there. So that would be how you tackle this. Let's look at part B, which is very similar to this, and let's try to substitute and identify where the substitution takes place over here. So you've guessed it again, we have x equals p plus q. Okay, p plus q. Okay, so wherever we see this, we're going to do the same thing. So 12 p plus q, or 12x cubed rather, all over, let's say 4x. Let's try to now simplify this. So this will be 12 divided by 4, 3, and I put a little imaginary 1 there. When you divide the x's, you take them away, so x squared. So we won't write now x's, we're going to write obviously p plus q, because that's what we wrote over here. So 3p plus q squared. We sub this back. So we can call this a subbing process if you want to. It does come up in exam questions sometimes, but again, please make sure you understand, go over this particular question, go over this substitution kind of idea. So let's review now our revision card, and let's make sure we've understood this video about simple factorizing. So the first thing we've learned is how to do basic factorizing when you just create a highest common factor and you simply create your bracket within that. Number 2, we've learned a technique called dots, div of 2 squares, where you have to identify a square number. It's pretty easy if you understand that. And we've also learned basic quadratics, how to create a quad box, which is quite easy. So again, these are the 3 clear steps. So you should now be able to identify any one of the 3 factorizing concepts. That's the first thing you should do when you look at a question like this. It's either basic factorizing, dots, or quad box. Number 2, you simply apply one of those 3 different techniques we just named. And 3, you simplify it if you can. So look through these. These are the 3 clear steps. Let's turn over now to our toolkit to make sure that you've written this down before we hit our Let's Do It questions. Here's your final toolkit, sections A, B, and C. This is what you should have on your revision card right now, and this is going to help us to get through our Let's Do It questions. So make sure you have these written down the way we have it over here, or in your own way, in fact. And these are the 3 key elements of factorizing. So basic factorizing, dots, and quad box. So pause the slide, please, and we're going to hit with our Let's Do It questions in a second. Question 1, let's do it. Press pause, write this question down, and press play when you are ready. Question 2, let's do it. So write this question down, press play when you are ready. Congratulations, you now have completed this video on simple factorizing. So you should be in a good position now to understand and identify basic factorizing, difference of 2 squares, or dots we call it, and quadratics, the quad box. So look back at your revision notes, your key formulas, and go to your revision planner right now on this bronze topic and tick off how good you feel on week 8 on your feel good factor.